Yahoo! Yahoo! Prof here. And today, like, if this seems heavy, it's because it is. And you're like, what is this? Well, this right here is the Surface Laptop Studio 2 loop tap. Alright, so you might be wondering why I have this. Well, I have this because, well, I currently have this and this. That's why. So, you can see how dusty the surface is. That should tell you how much that gets used. Probably clean that off better. Oh, it's the edge. Downside of this cloth material is it's really picks up the cat fur and the dust. What this is a second gen Razer Blade Stealth 13. Second gen, it means it's the 2020, I believe, but it's the revised one. So we've got ourselves 10th gen. Technically, it's a 10.5 gen since it is true 10 nanometer. This went to the 120 hertz screen. I think it's a 1650 Super. Let's see here. Nope, 1650 Ti. Original one of these was, oh, and this is the higher, I think the 25 watt TDP. I don't remember if it goes 10 or 15 to 25, something like that. So it's the revised one. I originally had the original one and it had some issues. By the time they determined it couldn't be fixed, they just refunded me and I ended up getting like the revision of it, not the 11th gen. Razer, however, does not make this anymore, so that's why we're looking at that. The other reason is part of the reason is this actually ended up having to get a new motherboard under warranty. It does work fine now, except in Windows 11. As you can see, it is still on. Never went to. You might not be able to see. There you go. Still on. Never went to sleep. Because Razer abandoned the Blade Stealth. There are no Windows 11 drivers for it. There are Windows 10 ones, so you have to make sure you image it, ideally with the one it comes with, and then upgrade it to Windows 11, because you have to get all your drivers, because they only come through Windows Update. But because those are Windows 10 drivers, and they changed how Windows 11 drivers are, I don't know if it's the certs on them, or what it is. I think certs are related to that. Since they're 10 drivers, they fail to install via Windows Update and Windows 11, even when you force them to do that. So I found you can get it working. Actually, I've been using it ever since I got the motherboard replaced. But some things just don't work right, because even though it's got relatively new hardware and actually should, for the most part, support every feature of Windows 11, being a 10th and a half gen, it turns out that Microsoft and Intel really wants you to have the 11th gen, which this isn't. And this Razer, because they just killed off the 13-inch line of their Blade Stealth, just never put out proper Windows 11 drivers for it. Then this is here because I use it every so often. I got it. This replaced my Surface Go. I had a coworker that really wanted my original Surface Go, because I had the better one. On launch, he really shouldn't have bought the lower one, but he loved his, but bought the lower one, and because he used it all the time, quickly ran into its limitations. I ended up having this be available to me for this basically the same price as I sold the Surface Go, with no accessories. Kept the pen from my Surface Go, and bought a open box keyboard from Best Buy while I was working there. Ta-da! By the way, this thing sits there for months on end and doesn't get used, but then when I do use it, I'll use it for like a month straight. Now what's kind of hilarious is, here's part of the reason why I'm ending up with the Surface. This has literally been sitting for over 2 months underneath my bed, the side of my bed, right? And it immediately signs in and still has 53% battery. My Razer Blade Stealth can't even reliably go to sleep. And yes, you guys are like, oh, Windows always has sleep issues and blah, 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 blah. But if you have it set up correctly, it doesn't. Yes, it'll sometimes wake because of modern standby. You can turn that off. Also, if you turn off fast startup and a bunch of other things, you can do better. That's not the issue. The issue is running Windows 11 on it. Some of the stuff that puts it into away mode with Windows 11, like that works differently in 11 than it does 10, or especially like latest versions of 11. And the Razer Blade Stealth you can't do it. So unless you remember to close all of the applications you have open, and then it'll actually go to sleep. But if you're basically doing anything, like even Discord open, even if you're not in a voice chat, it'll think it's doing something and will not go to sleep. Whereas the Surface, it's been sleeping, not even hibernating, for like 2.5 months, and it's still got 53% battery. So that is why we went Surface. Cannot buy a Razer Blade Stealth anymore, and gosh darn, the Surface that I got for dang nearly free. This is, I think, the Pro 6. It is the oldest version compatible with Windows 11. As you saw, still does not have Windows 11 on it. It's only the 128 gig model. I bought it off a friend because this is the one that comes with the keyboard. They kept that, but because it's the i5 edition that comes with the keyboard, that means it's passively cooled, and they were using it for actual creative tasks, like regularly using it daily for Photoshop and that sort of stuff. And I can tell you the passive surfaces are not, even if it's the same i5, the passive surfaces of this era cannot handle that. If you notice, like I said, I don't even have an AC adapter. Turns out some places on Amazon do sell Surface Plug to Type-C, because this is the gen right before they added native Type-C, right there. So that's how I have an adapter I carry around in a couple bags, like I have 2 or 3 of them, and that's how I charge this. But yeah, the other thing is, with how cheap I got this, well, as you saw, I just literally chuck it next to my bed, and I don't treat it properly. Here's the thing though, I don't treat this properly, and it works every time. I baby the Razer Blade Stealth. Like, I use it, but like every time I use it, I make sure I charge it. I make sure to, well, you have to make sure to, like, oh, let's make sure you're in hibernate. Oh, good guy, close the lid then. Don't close the lid before you put it in hibernate. No, etc. Or before it actually goes into hibernate. or sleep or whatever, then close the lid, etc. I can treat this however I want, and like I said, like you just pop this open, turn it on, boom, you're in. So that is why I went Surface this time around. Can't buy what I want, which is a 13-inch with a graphics card. Ideally, if you guys remember back in the day, Windows XP era, you could get 12-inch with a graphics card. I had a Dell 700M, and then they later came out with the XPS 12. The 700M did not have a dedicated card. Always wished I had had the XPS that had the dedicated card back then. But you can't even get a 13-inch anymore, and Razer just isn't selling that model. And a lot of people, when that model came out, I remember Roccat Kone review, I think on the original one before it got revised, and the revision was definitely needed, because you can actually turn down that processor to be a worse, or like the lower TDP. It's in the Razer Synapse software, so when you're on battery, you can use the lower TDP. But on the previous model, they were worried about cooling, because on a lot of the other laptops, they were overheating at the time, and they're like, oh, for cramming a CPU in an even smaller chassis, we don't want it to overheat. So then they put in just the lower wattage part, and instead of letting you turn down the higher wattage part. And well, really lacked in performance. However, for me, even the original was still fine. The 1650 Ti with the higher wattage, it's a i7 1065 G7, but like the 25 watt one in there, made a heck of a difference, even in especially in benchmarks. But it perfectly fits me. I want a portable laptop, basically, 13-inch portable ultrabook size, but with a graphics card. The other big issue with that thing is that Razer, even in their 17-inch in that era, I think even into the 11th gen era, they only shipped 16 gigs of RAM. And if you guys haven't seen any of my other videos, 16 gigs of RAM for me is not enough. I kill that instantly. Which is how I'm actually I nearly killed my SSD in my work laptop till I finally got 32. Because it has to eat into the page file so hard, and well, the more and more you write to a SSD, the more and more wear it has, and that's me. What, this thing is so freaking heavy. I saw a comment about like what one person didn't like about this. I think it was like on Austin Evans, was how heavy it was. I don't know how heavy the item is. Like, I looked it up, and I think it's only like a pound more than the Razer Blade Stealth, which for a 14-inch, like 13 to 14, I don't think that's the worst. But this box is super freaking heavy. This is 7.5 pounds. So hopefully a lot of that poundage is the charger and other shit in here. I really, 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 really hope that's the case. So what do we have in here? Well, we have, if we go over to this side over here, right there, we have the Surface Laptop Studio 2. The original Surface Laptop Studio actually super intrigued me, because my biggest issue with the Surface as well, and you're like, Elliot, if you like the Surface so much, why don't you just use it? Good question. Surfaces are horrible laptops, as in using on your lap, because they have to be in that tent shape. Nobody's knees are long enough for that to happen. Often, like, I would use other laptops, like 15-inch laptops, long ways, in order to put, like, because I'd be setting up a laptop or something, and I'd use that to use the Surface on. This solves this, because the keyboard on the Surface Laptop Studio is basically like an entire hard plank with like an easel screen on top of it. So we've got ourselves Surface Laptop Studio. This was originally supposed to come out in either late April or early May of 2023. It was delayed for 23H2 Windows 11. That never came out. Technically, I don't even believe it's Moment 4. It's just a big update, even though Moment 4 is probably like the biggest moment ever in the Windows 11 updates. And it's actually Moment 4, I believe. I don't believe that's an official title, unlike the previous moments, where Moment 1, Moment 2, Moment 3. That might be because it's only in preview. I think it'll officially release in November. But that was kind of what they were waiting for here, and the updated components in here. So it did get like newer processors, newer graphics cards, that sort of stuff. What version did I get? I got 13th Gen i7. There's two different models of that. I got the lower one, I believe. 32 gigs of RAM though, and what getting 32 gigs of RAM originally was going to force you to do is get a 2 terabyte SSD and a 4060. That was at least the leaked specs. I think those leaked specs were for a different country, like Australia or something like that. It was still an English country, but turns out, at least in the US, you can get your 32 gigs of RAM with a terabyte boot drive, which that's like kind of like the minimum for direct storage and smaller stuff now, or the recommended, I guess. So I wanted a terabyte. Also, I'll eat through 500 gigs and nothing flat, so I need some breathing room. Spending the extra in a Surface for 2 terabyte is insane though. And I also need an graphics card. Once again, an graphics card. So I do not need the 4060, because originally, in order to get the 32 gigs of RAM, you had to get the 4060. Right? I'm glad I didn't have to do that, because this thing was plenty pricey already, as is. There is actually even a higher GPU than the 4060, and that is a RTX Ada something, like 5000 or 4000, or I think it's probably Ada 4000, since this is, and it is RTX 4000 Ada, because NVIDIA had to be pieces of stupidity and rename their Quadro line to all this random shit and keep renaming it all the time, like, because it was RTX this. Also, it should be RTX anything, because GTX is gaming. I know it can do ray tracing, but it's not a gaming card. It's literally a workstation card. It's so confusing. I didn't realize at first. Like, I didn't know the name of, like, what that name meant. Whereas Quadro, you knew that was the... So if you were actually using this for work, like if you were using this in industry, I would probably go to the Quadro. Quadro. And that's the highest spec GPU. So realistically, for me, I basically wanted a Surface laptop, but I always thought the Surface laptops were done because they had pen support, but they're a laptop. Like, who's drawing on a pen, for example, or who's drawing with a pen? Like, imagine my Razer Blade Stealth is a Surface laptop. Who's drawing like this with a pen? Also, the hinge wasn't ever strong enough to do that. So you like, and it would go like more, like they were built well for Surface laptops. I just never understood why they had the same pen. Like, it's probably just for like ease of use or looking stuff and blah blah blah. Never understood why the laptops had pen support. However, with how much I actually like my Surface for Surfacey things, and the fact that I actually for a while was, while my Razer Blade Stealth was out for repair and ended up getting a new motherboard. I have no idea how Geek Squad, 3 years into its lifespan, managed to find a new motherboard. They didn't get it from Razer, and they didn't have it in stock. So that's amazing that they did that. Thanks. Like, I'm glad that I have a working Razer Blade Stealth. But and some of you guys have actually bought them on my recommendation. Once again, like, people say, oh, Link Buds, like Sony Link Buds, they're the ones with the donut headphones with the hole in. Oh, they're horrible, blah, blah, blah. No, those are the perfect headphones for certain people. I'm probably up to 5 people that I've recommended those to that love them. there are people that is the perfect product for. Same thing, that Razer Blade Stealth Lenticular 67. He and his and over on Discord. You can join us there, talk about this sort of stuff if you haven't or want a place to do that. He, on my recommendation, when the 11th gen version of that was on sale, picked one up, and from my understanding has been loving it. And with that like newer hardware in there, has not been having any of the weird issues I have. I mean, it was like a half gen upgrade. Razer likes doing that, where basically as soon as new hardware comes out, they put out a new model, because unlike most brands, they don't completely refresh everything about the laptop when they put out a new model. They're just like, oh, the new GPUs are out, we slapped them in there, cool. Which I actually appreciate, because otherwise most places they're like, oh, we're only going to put out one a year, if that, and we have to wait for the new CPU and the new GPU to be out. But then these companies also complain when they want to put out a new model yearly, right, especially on the lower end, and there's not a new i3 out, because it's an i3 and nothing's changed, because 12th gen is still fine if you want an i5 or lower. But then what you get is AMD rebranding. If you look at like their AMD, is it the 7000 or the 5000 series mobile chips? It's like you could have as old as a 2nd gen, actually. Crazy. Oh God. Wow, that just comes right up. Probably because the box is so freaking heavy. Boop. Looking at this closer on the picture, it is pretty chunky. We'll see if it fits in my camera bag too. That might be one thing that always disqualified 14-inch laptops. Holy jeez, it's chunky. It's not as heavy as people say. So what's all the weight? I mean, like, it's not light. I think the box is just heavy. Yeah. Okay, hold on here. Before we unwrap that, let's see what's in here. Like, this box is actually, like, pretty heavy. Because this looks pretty thin. Oh, you could club a man to death with this. Had my mom pick up the box before I opened it up for you guys here, and she's like, "What's in there? A brick?" Yeah, literally, that's like a brick. Where's our connector? It is a surface connector. That's kind of good and kind of bad. Should have Type-C, should charge over Type-C. Hopefully it'll do full 100 watts. We can test that. I have one of those unpluggable, or no, not unpluggable, pluggable USB-C testers or whatever, where it'll tell you like what volts and amps it's using. Traditionally, they used, crap, I'd have to look. I think some of them use 15 volt, like a switch. It's weird. Like the Surface, you can plug in the Type-C, because Type-C does like 5, 9, 12, 15, 20, and 30. So if you have the right thing set up, you can use any of those voltages. It's kind of why I'm kind of surprised nobody's done a proper 30-pin charging cable that uses up to at least the 20 volt, because most Type-C chargers, good ones at least nowadays, can do up to the 20 volts. And even with Apple's 30-pin for the iPods, even FireWire only uses 12 volts, obviously. So you could charge that thing. I don't know. Can't snap today, guys. Holy... Yeah, I think a lot of this is the box is freaking heavy. They're trying to make it feel like a super uber premium product, which it is, because the base model without a GPU, which you shouldn't buy, starts at $2,000. Now, I have no problem spending upwards of like beyond $2,000 on a laptop. It used to not be uncommon to do that not all that long ago. What is this? Left a piece of sticker on it over here. It's a Captain tape. Interesting. It looks exactly like Captain tape. Ooh, she's booting up. Does that not look like a MacBook? I'm not saying I want... Ooh, it's top heavy. Because it's got the Surface screen in there. Which means it's thick. Like here, look at that. Look at that screen. It has a thick screen. But what we should be able to do is... How do we pop it out? I've literally never played with one of these before, for those wondering. Yeah, so the bottom comes out. How, though? That is the... I have to lean it back more? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you have to get it... How strong is that? Not very? Oh, okay, so it wants to be here, which is like...
To set up your device using a screen reader, turn on narrator
like
by
that.
pressing Windows plus Control
Right.
plus Enter. For more accessibility
It magnetically
features,
snaps
press
there.
Windows plus U, or select the accessibility icon in the bottom corner.
Shows up. Okay, so it's got the taptic feedback trackpad, just like Apple. And it should go all the way down too. Yep. So you can adjust it in between here, but realistically it wants to lock in that position, you know, like a laptop, which is probably how I'll use it most times. Or if you're going to use it for drawing, it goes all the way down, like that, which truthfully is how I would use it. And what's actually nice is now you have a hard surface on the back, and you're not dealing with, yeah, it's a heavier thing. Like, you're not going to carry this around like a tablet. However, realistically, I never use the Surface that way. I'd grab an iPad if I wanted to use something like just with a stylus. Granted, I used from time to time I would use the Surface that way, but that's just because I don't really have an iPad. This is a massive trackpad. I feel like the keyboard is way far away, but that's because of the... Oh, here's another benefit of the Surfaces. You get the 3x2 screen, and with a laptop where you have a single screen, taller is better. I don't think this actually ships with Windows 10 Pro. I might be wrong. Ugh. Or Windows 11 Pro, sorry. Windows 10 Pro. It's got Thunderbolt 4. Yeah, it has with Windows 11 Home. I don't even know. The one that comes with the Quadro better come with Pro, because that would be the one you'd get for like a business. I'll have to update this to Pro because there are many Pro features that I use. Oh, and I can't even skip the fucking setup because it's not... If you're running, the only one you can skip setup in now is Enterprise. So, it's right there. I really don't want to set it up with my Microsoft account as much as they're going to want me to do that. That is not how I do things. Hold Shift F10, Shift Function F10. OBE slash OBE slash bypass NRO. Go. Okay. So it's Shift F10, which should bring up command prompt. Then you do all caps OOBE slash bypass NRO, and that should reopen the setup, skipping the network whatever requirement stuff. We'll see if it works on home here. Oh, you're gonna see that. So yeah, you can have the screen at any height, but be aware it doesn't snap in except at this one, which is good if it's sturdy here. You could easily draw if you want to do upright drawing. However, you lose your keyboard. It's in here. So that's where I know it would work worse as a laptop, but I almost think the keyboard should be down here. There used to be a Dell and I think a Gateway that were like that back in the early Windows 8 era, when people were trying to figure out what the standard for 2-in-1s would be. That was one of the ideas, was something actually very, very, very similar to this. I actually thought it was a decent idea. If you were actually going to use the touch. It ended up being the Lenovo Yoga that ended up winning, but that's because, from my experience, most people don't actually use the touchscreen on their, or I should say, they might use the touchscreen, but they don't flip it into 2-in-1 mode, like into a tablet. Oh, I don't have internet. Oh, what a shame, Microsoft. Continue with limited setup. TheProfosist. I don't have a password. Turn all this jazz off. First thing I'm going to do is get an upgrade key of this, get it to Pro. Well, I'll let it do its setup and stuff first. Okay, so it looks pretty thin from the top down, but it is a chonky boy. This may take a few minutes. So we have two Thunderbolt 4 ports over here. So if I get a proper Thunderbolt 4 dock, I could, we probably wouldn't get Thunderbolt 4, Thunderbolt 3 dock. I could use it for work and home. Micro SD, that is probably the biggest issue with this. I've heard from a lot of people is that should have been SD. I actually have literal zero. I mean, I have devices that have micro SD, but like I'll test the speeds on here to see if it's UHS 2, which is essentially the USB 3 of SD cards. Realistically, if you're gonna put on a full-size device like this an SD card here, it should be a full-size one. You can always adapt it down to a micro. This, like I said, basically useless to be on there, in my opinion. The only thing I regularly use that has micro SD is the Sony RX0 II, which hopefully they make an RX0 III at some point, because that thing really needs always on autofocus. Oh god, this screen looks so freaking good. Yeah, and you're purposely not connected to the network because we're going to uninstall Microsoft OneDrive. Pro tips, guys. Here you go. All right, first thing we want to do is good. It has the on-screen keyboard button right away because we're going to want it if you use it in this mode. And where did my on-screen keyboard button go? Close that. Start on-screen keyboard. Oh, this is still the pop-up one, not the control panel. Always do all categories. Boop. Oh, and I forgot to buy the pen that comes with it. It's like the flat one. I'm gonna see if my other one works, which is this guy. Because if I don't have to buy one, I won't, because I'm cheap. I may eventually buy. This one really needs a new tip, but oh, and we're working. There you go. Yeah, go it. Fucking right-handed. Oh, it sees it as a new pen? Yeah, surface pair. It's working with this one. Paired successfully. Awesome. I don't think the blue looks bad. I need a new tip for it though. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the other thing I need to do on this that I did actually take the time to properly do is train the handwriting, and then the surfaces would work way better. That you can actually train the handwriting in Windows. So where you're supposed to store this, oh, it's moving to tablet mode, fuck that, is down here. This is where the magnet is for the pen. It's right down there. Does it go this way instead? Oh, it locks in there. Really good. Yeah, what about this way? It's got two magnets in there. Neither are lining up properly with this. Like that lines up okay, but it's only one of them. And that lines up okay, but it's... Oh, that's actually not bad. Oh, look at that. I could actually rock that probably. Not like with it stored down there, but if I needed to carry it around. And that's mainly what I'll probably do, is I'll probably keep this in a bag. And then, because I don't think... Oh, that's the other trick you can use, by the way. This, being that this is magnetic and this is magnetic on the pen, you can always slap it onto the Surface port. Not that that's a recommended thing by the company, but you can do it. There's actually a whole bunch of magnetic spots on this thing, so I might just rock this one. They do have a special one that's flat. That's the one that came out with the Surface Pro X, which is the one that was supposed to run Windows 10 S. No, not 10S, 10X, which is where Windows 11 got its interface from. If you're wondering, guys, Windows 11 is basically Windows 10 21H2, or what was supposed to be at that. It did eventually get mixed with the interface from Windows 10S, or sorry, 10X, which was supposed to be like the dual screen, like there's the dual screen Surface, right? And then there's the ARM one too. Like it was all I got canned basically. So what they did is they took the remnants, and because a lot of the hardware requirements that ended up being for 21H2 for Windows 10 would have cut off a ton of hardware. That's where the cutoff would have been for Windows 11, right? And you can't just tell people they can't use Windows 10 anymore. I mean, you could try to, but good luck. I'm glad to see though that my pen works. Yeah, being serious, like I'm glad to, like I much prefer this versus the flat one. May still buy the flat one, just to see what it is. But yeah, this I barely got a nub left down there. I think I might have more tips, someplace. I actually prefer the harder one. This is kind of the soft one that's supposed to mimic like a felt tip pen, if I recall correctly. What we're in here for is programs and features. Oh my god, they installed Office 365 on a ton of shit on here. Okay, first thing that's going is OneDrive. Always uninstall OneDrive before you even connect your computer to the internet, because then it won't update it. Like, that's one of the few things. Realistically, don't uninstall any Microsoft Store apps. All it's going to do is re-download them. Being serious here. It's just going to. At some point, it should pop up with permission for me to uninstall that. Yes, troubleshooting. Change setting, off on the troubleshooting, off on the allowed troubleshooting. Here, if you guys can see that there. That's what I do not like the automatic computer maintenance. Like, remind me of system maintenance, and it'll automatically do it. In enterprise, I have actually had companies where we have to disable that, as that will break stuff. If you're an end user, you probably want it. I don't though. So, that's my choice. I've just had it cause enough issues. What build are we running? That's a good question, isn't it? Yeah, I really want this to be the keyboard. Okay, so say that, like, this pops down here. How do I get to the fucking... You have to swipe up? Yeah, no, I want my buttons back. It auto-hides the taskbar in tablet mode. Like that. But here, that wouldn't be a problem if I had a keyboard. I'd press the Windows key. See, that was a big thing with Windows 8, is anything and everything. Because they took away the start button over here, you had to have a Windows key. And I agree with that. So there realistically should be someplace on here a dedicated hardware, and a lot of services actually had them. I think this one doesn't. Anybody want to buy a Surface though? Like I said, Pro 6, I think. So whatever the oldest one is that supports Windows 11, still runs great. It's a base spec one though. Oh yeah, we were gonna look at. I'm just gonna use a fucking laptop. Windows X. Okay, we still have PowerShell, not terminal. Which means it's probably actually still on. Is it sysinfo? Yeah. I bet you this is just on base 22H2. Just look up sysinfo. We have build 22621. Yeah, that's the same build. That's 22H2. So that's why I'm able to turn off maintenance. So if you want to turn off maintenance like that, you need to do it right on the install of 22H2. There is an update that changes and moves that setting a little bit. So very important to move that around. One bummer for me with this, and yes, I understand it's a Surface. I wish this was a true 8-core, not a true 6-core. And what I mean by true, well, there are big cores and little cores. There's 6 big cores that hyperthread, and then there 6 and 8 is 14. So then there are 8 efficiency cores, right? Because those come in groups of 4, 4, and 4. You can have the performance cores in as small as groups of 2. Realistically, in my opinion, any proper performance computer you get nowadays really should have a true, like, at least 8 cores, is what I'm saying. Like, I want 8 P cores. We have that issue with our ones at work too. We got a huge break on them, but they are only the 6-core ones, and I just believe with how everything's optimizing and stuff, because what ends up happening is there is stuff now that assumes you have 8 cores with 16 threads, and then some of the big stuff on the P cores gets kicked off to the E cores, and they're not the same. As much as people say, oh look, E cores, 8 E cores is now faster than a 2700X. Cool, great, but I could have 8 P cores, you know. Now, in a thing like a Surface, I can see why you would want efficiency cores. I cannot see on the desktop why that. Yeah, this works fine over here. When you're using it, just slap it and get it stuck to the Surface dock port. Right over here. That's probably not the best place for storage. If you're carrying it around, probably the front where the other one goes. Otherwise, it's not tight enough, and when you put it in your bag, it'll fall right off. But yeah, this is just running standard 22H2. It's not even running. You would think that because, okay, if you guys are wondering, that new update, that preview update, you would think that this, because these launched at, and this is maybe why they had less comments on it, that new build of Windows that has like the what do they call it, Copilot built in, that launched at the same thing where these Surfaces are announced. Now, the Surface were a little blip compared to all the AI shit they were talking about. And I thought these were delayed so these could get 23H2 as well as all this other stuff, but now 23H2 is delayed. You know, as is technically that update's only a preview, which is probably why it didn't ship on here. I'm not going to install it, but I am going to get this fully updated and everything. So that's not something you guys necessarily need to see and do. The one thing I do need to do with you all here, though, is I have a feeling that this is, yeah, I can already see there's scratches here. This is going to get all sorts of, there's little rubber bumpers here. But I have a feeling that that's going to get all sorts of scratched up. Ooh, it's nice, soft on the inside. Also, dust getting in between here, like in between the back of this and the flap. It's a beautiful laptop, though, that is for sure. Oh! Like a glove! So I was seriously worried about this fitting in my camera bag. But, as you might have just heard in the background there, like a freaking glove. And the reason why is though this is a 14.4-inch laptop, it is very square. It's got the 3x2-inch screen. So, it fits. See, this is meant for a 13-inch MacBook. This is not a one-handed affair because it's clipping on that side over there. And I gotta kind of get this side in and then slide that side in because of this little lip. And she fits. It's thick. That's, like I said, that's a pound. And I can tell you, walking around day to day, this with the camera gear I carry in there was already fairly heavy. And I want to say the Surface Laptop or Surface Laptop Studio 2, yeah, the top of it. This, my Razor Blade Stealth, right? Look at that, I can one hand that very easily. That's another big thing that I haven't tested with this yet. Here is something that laptops have to be able to do. Grab it, open it, pick it up. I walk around with it like this all the time. Just one hand to grab in the corner. It cannot flex some of the Dells that are they're even enterprise ones, but they're the lower grade ones. The whole chassis you can see bend and creak. But this fits. This is a Hadley 1, I believe. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I can have a computer. No, that computer is not on. This computer is on though. My loop tap, my old loop tap. That thing's on because it never goes to sleep. See, still not asleep. And no, it's not resuming from sleep that quickly. It should be at the login screen then. And Discord isn't open, so it's not Discord that's keeping it awake. I've seen that even Discord in the browser actually keeps it awake. Well, I mean, obviously I'm going to set minus probably my CD ripping softwares on there with my external CD-ROM drive there, and management softwares on there. I don't know if that'll go on here, but everything else will. So with the same workload I normally do, we'll be able to see if that sleeps. Like if you just leave it out with the screen open and it's not doing anything, it should sleep. I mean, I would set up to do it in like 5 minutes or something, maybe 10 minutes. This thing, I've done testing where it will and testing where it won't. Order. Hadley 1, I was correct. That is a Billingham Hadley 1. I don't remember what size it is because there's like the Hadley Pro, the blah, 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 blah. The Hadley 1 was the one that I thought would fit my kit very well. I normally keep, at the time I had a Canon. Now I run, and then I had my Panasonic G7, and now I got G85. So I generally run, this side is camera with my 2 Micro Four Thirds lenses underneath it for stowage with the laptop in. And then I got chargers, maybe the RX0 Mark II over here. Here's cables and that sort of stuff. Now, once we're actually walking about, generally speaking, I don't carry this. That stays wherever I'm staying. And then I move the lenses from this pouch, because the camera's in that pouch, to this pouch. So that way I can have camera here, lenses there. I can swap them as needed, just to make it easier. Or if I'd say if I'm walking around, I need more room. That's happened before. Well, then what do? You put the lenses back under the camera, and you have this whole pouch. You can put a drink in there. I put food in there when I was sick. Actually, out of here, one of these flaps, I took a square box of tissues. Well, they're actually folded in half. It's like a long box, actually folded in half, so they feed out. Turns out you just rip open the bottom of the box, and you can just put them right in here. And they feed as if they're in a tissue box. That's how you know you're good and sick. And it always seems to be that whenever I travel, I get decently. It's like now I get a cold, really, guys. But this just fits. See that? Like we're actually peeking over the edges here of the bag. It is not proud of that. You can see, but any bigger than this, and it would not have fit. That fit because this is designed for a 13-inch MacBook, but this is before 14 inches came out. This is probably 2018 I bought this, I believe. I mean, we just had our receipt up. Yeah. Summer 2018 I bought this for my trip out to the West Coast, Pacific Northwest there. Finally treated myself to a nice camera bag. I use it as a camera bag, laptop bag. Sometimes you take all that shit out and you just use it in these pouches come out, and you can just use it as a bag if you want to. For the most part, it's set up as a camera / laptop bag. Because a lot of that hardware is the same, if you know what I mean. But I'm super pumped. That was going to be a disqualifier. If it didn't fit in here and you're like, oh, hell, you should have measured first and stuff. Yeah, probably. But I also knew I could return it if it didn't. You know, Best Buy's got their, 14-day return policy or whatever. So I'll be rocking this. That's another thing. If I end up using this for, say 10 days, more than a week, once it's fully set up, and don't like it, it's going back because it's very expensive. I think this build of it was $2,700. Now, generally, a quality laptop should last you easily 3, if not 5 years. I know some of you are saying, I'm still running one that's 9 years old. If you use it daily and actually do things with the laptop, right, it is going to become, like, you could still use it in that time period, sure, but you're going to want and or need an upgrade. Even the 4 cores in that are becoming restrictive with CPU-oriented loads. Just for example, you know what I mean? And I've been kind of wanting to get rid of that for quite some time. As much as I actually like the laptop, the keyboard's kind of shit though. Surface keyboards are great. Even that typing cover, like the updated typing cover, looks like that. That is better than a lot of cheap laptop keyboards. So I'm pumped. I'm going to get this set up, and hopefully I'll get back to you guys on whether or not, or if you have comments, questions, let me know. I know this is not a cheap device. Way back in the day, I thought I was going to get a Surface Book. It was actually on my list, and you're like, huh, that is actually suspiciously about when that came out. Bingo. That was the other contender back then. However, all of the hinge issues and ejecting issues and all that sort of stuff, the Surface Laptop Studio 2, because the one didn't have a dedicated graphics card, if I recall correctly, or at least it didn't have a proper one. It was like an MX or something. By the way, if you guys are running the super low-end NVIDIA, there's no point in buying it. It doesn't have PhysX. It doesn't have CUDA support. That's why I want the GPU, is to accelerate all these workloads. I don't want it to be a GPU or output to more monitors. Integrated graphics can do that enough now. Actually, integrated graphics has a lot of accelerators as well. But that's why I want an NVIDIA GPU, is to do NVIDIA GPU things. So when you take away the benefits of the NVIDIA GPU, why is it in there? That is a waste of power budget, in my opinion. So you got to go high enough up to get a real GPU. In that case, 1650 was the lowest at the time. That's a 4050. That's essentially equivalent to that. So I saved some money there, and I'm glad I could, because I was thinking I would have to go to the 4060 to get the 32 gigs of RAM, which is that thing's one of its biggest issues is 16 gigs. You get a couple things going on it, and you hit that wall. And then you're using page file on the SSD, which there's plenty of SSD to do that with, but it really makes the system far less responsive, even with an NVMe. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about my choice, why I chose it, and why do you guys think that laptops like this are going away again? Like, they're really pushing 16 and even 16-inch laptops. I think, if I recall, Razer ditched. They even got rid of that now. They had that one for a while as their creator laptop. If you notice, there's a giant chin on it, right? They increased that to be a 16:10 display, right? And they made it their creator laptop, or I think it was Razer Book they called it or something, but it didn't have a GPU, so fucking useless for me. Even though the screen was technically better, as long as you didn't want the 120 hertz. All that's basically gone now from all the brands. Razer is even making, 16-inch laptops a couple years ago were all the craze. We're going from 15 to 16. We can get way better cooling in there. Well, all these big, huge, massive ones with these 4090s and these top-end 13900K and 14, I don't even know if there's 14900K S's. Forgot 14th gen is, it's going real new. Actually, I don't even know if it's out yet by this video. But they're now 18 inches. Yes, 18 inches. They're just these behemoths. And I even showed you with this. Now granted, it has the fancy screen, right? But without the chin down here, right? That is how big the Razer Blade Stealth is. That's impressive, right? Then they made the 14, And it got to like double the thickness of that guy. And even back, if you're running, like I consider, like Elliot, if 16 gigs is such an issue, go to Dell or HP and get a 13-inch that has 32 gigs. You can spec them out that way, but it's all soldered RAM, so it's all incredibly expensive. And then you still can't get a dedicated GPU because none of them make anything smaller than a 14-inch with a dedicated GPU. And if I'm going with a 14-inch, I'm going with something fancy. Or something unique, I should say, not something fancy. That's wedged in there. I'm sure it'll get used to it. But, you know, does it do it one-handed? Sure does. Can I pick it up? It is a little bit loosey-goosey because the monitor is fairly heavy. But I can pick it up by the corner. That extra pound, I will tell you guys, is most definitely noticeable. Yeah. So we're gonna, like, that's straining my hand for sure. They make it look real slim, but all the cooling comes out the sides here, which is definitely unique. And I think it's gonna have to, or they had to do that because of the, like on the Razer Blade Stealth, it comes out this crack here. Well, that's not necessarily always going to be possible because of how you have your tenting, like your tent mode. That, to me, by the way, that's like a standard surface right there. So that's why that makes sense, right? And then here we go. This is probably, I doubt I'm going to use it in that mode very much. It is very sturdy. But that's probably where I will use it. Right there. In its like easel mode, essentially. So that if you're running, that's the killer feature in my. This is definitely a two-handed thing. If anybody knows how this is supposed to work one-handed, oh, you can kind of do it. You have to manhandle it, and I don't particularly like doing that. But for example, if you want to use this on your lap, right? You got to flip out the leg, then you got to balance that on your knees. Unless you got some really long thighs. Okay, so that's got a balance there, right? That's actually what's supporting everything. Then this has to stick out, right? And then actually, because it's on your lap, this doesn't stay supported very well when it's up like this. So it's probably going to flap down like that. And then it's just a floppy mess. That's why Surfaces are bad laptops. And where is the number one place that I use my laptop? Turns out I don't use it at my desk because that is a desktop. Actually, right there is my new desktop. That's Anthrax X Lite because it's in a fractal pop now, and I gave up building in the case labs because I don't want to deal with water cooling. It turned out pretty nice though. But we'll end this off with an actual sit. I don't have my chair. It's actually out for repair, getting recovered. Oh god, this thing's chonk. It is chonk. It's heavy, but oh, okay. Like, look, here's a couch. Look at me on the couch. There's a lap. There's a cat that's gonna want to go in the lap, but what goes in the lap instead of the cat is the lap top. And if running why this is such a big deal is normally the Surface couldn't do that because you want the keyboard here, right? Well, on a Surface, in order for it, because remember the hinge starts here and then there's a leg that comes out. Look, that's off my knee. That's off my knee. That's why I would actually take other laptops, flip them this way if I was working on them, close the lid, flip them this way, and then use the Surface on top of it to essentially extend my thigh. And then, even then, and that's if you want the keyboard here. Now you can get away with it if you don't want to do that because you have to get that part. Well, what that does is this moves it here in order to get the leg on your kneecap just on the edge where it's going to fall off, which it did for me so many times. Now, in order to get the keyboard close enough, you're jamming it into your fat gut that I have. Yeah, because I gotta get it way closer And that's, look, my fingers want to be up here and there, and you gotta like get your arms in. Yeah, Surfaces are bad laptops. Turns out the Surface Laptop Studio works great as a laptop. And if you want to go easel mode, or not easel mode, like standard Surface mode, this is right at your hand distance when sitting as a laptop. Still wish there should be buttons here at least. Because like think about it, if you're gonna draw in Photoshop or something like that, you're gonna want to use you activate shit with the keyboard. So we need an external keyboard now or a keypad or something. But yeah, it's at the perfect distance too, and that's way more sturdy than because of this heavy base that's on here. That is way more sturdy than any Surface I've ever used. So I might actually use it like this if I'm just browsing along, because you can just scroll like this. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll see. But I know for a fact I'm definitely going to use it laid all the way down when I'm doing handwriting and drawing stuff. So let me know. This is a highly specialized product. I think it's going to be a great fit for me though, because it's going to replace. It's a little bit thicker than. Actually, to be truthful, the Surface plus the Razer Blade itself stacked on top of each other are probably about as thick as this is, and maybe about as heavy. So this literally may just be two devices smashed together. But the nice thing is I will always have all the devices, and it's going to fix especially my sleep issues and the Windows 11 compatibility that the Surface Blade Stealth has, and a bunch of the other stuff that I already talked about. So I'm pretty pumped. Also the keyboard. This keyboard is like 6 times better than the Razer Blade. Like listen to this. There's actual travel and clickiness. Listen to that. I always liked the Surface laptops in their build quality and everything. I just always thought it was stupid because they were basically this, thinner, which is good, but then they had the pen support, right? But they just had a screen that went from here, like this. It did this, and it went back, like to there. Didn't even open up, like, I can kind of understand why this one doesn't open up further because there's the fancy hinge in there. But realistically, if you don't have a fancy hinge in your laptop and it's not one that flips all around, it should at least go flat. At least in my opinion. I think here the reason why it does is because this is heavier, because it has all the junk in it for the hinging. And even when I picked it up before, it flapped out all the way to there because of the extra mass. Probably got more leverage or something. Yeah, there is only the gray color. I like the gray color though. Gray and or white keyboards are way better than black keyboards in my opinion. Even on my Dell 700M, if I went back into the back room right now, it shipped with a black keyboard. There was a white keyboard version though in other parts of the world. When I had to replace the keyboard because I had worn the labels off the keyboard, I went with the gray one with the white lettering. Not the black one with the white lettering. No. Or is it gray with black lettering? I don't know. Either way, it's the lighter colored keyboard. Didn't actually look that bad because the top of that laptop was silver with white accents. Yeah, so that better. Oh, does this have backlighting? Yeah, it should. Yeah, it's got keyboard backlighting. See? Do it. Pro tip, by the way, you do not need a brightness up and down for a keyboard backlight. Yeah. So, and if you're wondering why the keyboard backlight is needed, is I would actually prefer non-backlit keys. However, when they have backlit keys, they're actually harder to see. Like right now, in this dimly lit color, the white on gray, because it's white that's meant to be backlit, is harder to see than, say, even the minimum backlighting. Because they could have made it natively look like that without being backlit by just making it white lettering, right? But then you can do stuff like cranking it up. I have no need for that. I usually leave it on the minimum. But I can't leave it off because that might as well be invisible. And I mean, I'm a decent touch typer, but especially this top row with the function keys and some of the sometimes number row special characters and stuff like that. Yeah, I still need to look at those. But I will probably be flipping. I normally do. I change the function row into just F keys, and then you have to do function, because that's what I'm used to from, and I don't want function lock. Turn that garbage off. They're basically making it very newbie friendly. But if you do anything where you actually do actual work on a keyboard, like here, for example, even if you're ripping, say when I was ripping CDs, F4 is detect gaps. So that's the gaps between the songs on the CD. And then F5 is rip. F5 is I think verify then rip. Or it might be something else. And then Shift F6 is rip. So like you don't have to use any of this stuff. You know, like and there's definitely stuff I do day to day where like you just press the F key to make it go. Life's better. I do like having functions. You know, what do we got? We got mic on, mic mute, speaker volume, keyboard brightness, monitor brightness, print screen. Oh yes, print screen. That kind of sucks that that's not a dedicated key. I like having a dedicated print screen key. Home and end, page up, page down. Useless up here. They fixed this. Oh my god. Okay, so on the Razer Blade Stealth, because power's in the upper right on MacBooks, they put it in the upper right. Upper right corner is where delete is. This is where delete always is. When power is there, you have probably no idea how many times I have pressed, I go delete, and then that's the power button. And I actually disabled the power button from just a click doing anything in Windows because of how many times I hit it on the Razer. The fact that they did power here and delete where it should be is freaking glorious. Like just being serious here. That chef's kiss. Chef's kiss right there. So as much as it seems like I should like this keyboard, hopefully or not the keyboard, computer, hopefully I like it as much as I think I will. Once it's on your lap, you're not going to notice the extra chonk. As soon as you pick it up, it's got some chonkiness to it. I wonder how the side vents will do with lap use, because the Razer Blade would have had intakes on the bottom, which obviously would be touching my thighs here, and then it exhausts out the monitor, and then it heats up your nice little kitty paws here. You know, your typing digits, your data input devices. This being that it's coming out the side, or coming in or out the sides, I don't know if anybody's done a look into how airflow and stuff like that is, or how it works. I'm sure it's very similar to the original, just has decent specs now, finally. Loved the design of the original, actually. I saw it and I was like, oh, I could go for one of those, and I saw the specs and I'm like, eh. But then I saw the rumors back in April of, I think it was end of March, I saw the rumors that they were going to announce it in April. There was actually even hardware. It was leaked in like 3D Mark or one of those benchmarks. And then it just, and they're like, oh, at the latest it'll be May. And the reason why it would have been that is Computex. Computex is in May, shortly after my birthday. And I was like, oh, I'll be buying a laptop for my birthday. Boom, boom, bam. Nope. Literally, leaks happened, benchmarks got leaked, just dead silence. I think it might have been a 30 series GPU then, but then we basically knew it had to come out. If these updates were going to come out, it had to come out at the Surface event when that would normally be, and that's normally when the new Windows version comes out. Oddly though, new Windows version didn't happen, so that's why this one shipped fairly out of date. Well, it's fairly out of date because it shipped with 22H2, which has had all these massive updates, but it hasn't had like a full version. I'm guessing that's what 23H2 will really do. Supposedly 23H2 is actually just supposed to be a small update that you didn't even know going through, and that would actually be Moment 4, because it's actually all a bunch of different apps and pieces and parts that are getting upgraded, not the OS. But, and I say Moment 4 in quotes because technically At least from what I've read, it's not even called that. So, yeah, I guess this is a current state of, oh God, okay, yep, definitely going to have to get used to the chunk. For example, though, it's nothing like my Lenovo workstation laptop that's right there. That's got a 10th gen and a 2080 mobile in it. Actually, let's bring the old Surface Laptop Studio over there. So there's a 135 watt power brick, I want to say. Or is it like a 200 something? If only we had this thing called lights. 230. Yeah, so it's a 230 watt power brick there. Here is the Surface Laptop Studio. The back end of it is still shorter than the front end of this Lenovo workstation. Now, this is not the thin Lenovo workstation. Like they have like an X series Carbon Extreme. That's kind of like their like portable. That's what I really wish I had at my previous job when they were getting me a laptop. Let's flip it over. So there you go. We're not even up to the venting when you flip it over. So that truly is chunk. That's just chunkier than what I'm used to. But it should have much better hardware, especially CPU-wise. This has an H series processor in it, whereas the Razer Blade Stealth has the G series, because the H series was not yet updated for 10 nanometer yet. That didn't come till 11th gen. And with the power envelope they have, they're worried, the Razer Blade Stealth, and I'll need to test this. I don't know what wattage the power brick is on it yet. The Razer Blade Stealth had to stay within the 100 watt USB-C envelope. That's the other issue they had, and why the CPU was the lower end and the 1650 was lower end. That whole thing is powered off 100 watts of Type-C, which back then was a lot of Type-C, but that was the max amount could be done over Type-C. That's also why I bought that, is because I don't have to carry a laptop charger, like a separate one. Like, imagine carrying that thing around. This has a Surface one, but it can be charged over Type-C. I'm going to see how big that is. We may, because you can actually do, if it's got PD 3.1, it can do 140 watts over Type-C, which may be enough to get this thing where I don't have to carry that Surface charger around. So, oh yeah, a bunch of chubby cables. There's a Club 3D USB 4 cable, a spludger, NVMe adapter. Look at that. Oh, there's the HTPC. Case, not amazing. Case, however, perfect for my use. Air is actually, I reversed airflow though, and it goes this way. So in the top, in the back, out the front. When you got cold hands, just come over here when you're gaming or watching TV and just warm them up. Reversed airflow actually works really well. I was going to use it when my build was going in the Case Labs, and Peyton's using it in his build as well. So, any questions, comments, all that sort of stuff, throw them down below. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video where I do a follow-up on this. And as always, I'm at TheProfosist. Find me on any